It's my DraftKings hockey picks for Thursday, February 13th, and we're starting right now. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Holkamaniacs YouTube channel. If this is your first time here and you want to become a more profitable DraftKings player, start now by subscribing to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. And if you're already a Holkamaniac, you know exactly what time it is. Smash that like button. But if you do want to get into that drawing for 20 DK bucks, make sure you drop into the comments your favorite stack for tonight's 11-game slate. Let's talk about some game environment and some potential stacking opportunities today. So one of the things that I want to do first on this sheet, and again, if you aren't in the Discord, I do have a video that kind of walks you through how to use this data sheet. It's something that I make available to all my Twitch subscribers, and we kind of talk about it as a community. But I definitely think that sorting by game pace first, just to get an idea of some of the games that could be, I guess, higher paced overall, but two defenses that give up a lot of Corsi is something that I'm certainly trying to do whenever possible, especially on these large slates. Like if we go the other side, look at some slower paced games, like that's something that we should definitely be paying attention to. Since we're here at the top, let's start with New Jersey. I do think that it's a really interesting scenario. I know Coleman didn't get there for us a couple slates ago, but I do think that New Jersey is an interesting spot against Detroit, a team that we've certainly been targeting most of the season. Gives up an above average amount of high danger, so we like that. And I do think that this could be a game that might be just outside of that high implied total tier, and we're always looking for that in tournaments. So right off the bat, I think New Jersey could come in a little bit under owned today, so I do have some interest in that. There's a couple teams at the top that I think could be relatively popular that I'm honestly not as interested in. So the first team that we can kind of talk about in that regard, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think it's just a really interesting scenario now that Connor McDavid's not there for Edmonton, but they're just one of those teams that just doesn't give up a lot of high danger opportunities on the other side of it. And in terms of what Tampa Bay has been doing most recently, they've actually been producing a low number of high danger in their own right. So I do think that it's always kind of a high efficiency spot for Tampa Bay because of where their price tags are at. And I struggle with those guys in particular. I'd be totally fine with like a Kucherov or 0.1 off. I just don't know if they're going to be a core stack for me today overall. So let's take a look at a couple situations that we do like in terms of the stacking opportunities today. And I think that the Minnesota Wild are actually really interesting. They do have a nice 3.8 implied goal total. The problem with Minnesota is always going to be that they're just not generating a ton of offense, or at least valuable offense overall. But the matchup couldn't be much better against this New York Rangers team that I guess has played a little bit better in terms of their Corsi allowed over the last few games, but they're high danger, second highest on the slate. So I do think that Minnesota could be in a nice spot here to at least hit their ceiling and kind of come through for us. We do have some nice price points on some of those guys too, which we'll get into. So one of the spots that I think is really interesting on this slate is the Colorado Avalanche. What do we do with guys like McKinnon against this Washington defense that has been pretty elite, honestly? So 51.1% Corsi against over the last 25 games, which is really strong. The problem is they are giving up a decent amount of high danger, I guess slightly above average. Nothing crazy here, just like a basic kind of a darker green number. And if anyone's new to this data sheet, when you see a black number, it doesn't mean that it's empty. It just means that it's somewhere middle of the pack, and we shouldn't be using it really in our analysis. So Colorado, I've been kind of ignoring this a little bit, probably too much lately, but this is a really low high danger for over the last 16 games. Worse on the slate, honestly. So I guess that would be a concern with going after Colorado, though we know that there's just so much condensed volume there. We know where the puck's going to go. And just, I mean, Nathan McKinnon, completely matchup proof in terms of how we should be targeting him. He's always got to be at least in the conversation, I would say, regardless of the matchup on the other side. So I guess in terms of that, I think that Toronto is a really interesting conversation to have today as well. I actually think that at 3.8 goals at home against this Dallas team that, again, doesn't give up a lot of high danger, it's just one of those slates. We talked about this a couple of slates ago, I believe, that sometimes the pieces just come together. Sometimes they don't come together perfectly, but if there's not like a standalone best spot of the night, sometimes you just got to rely on where you think the talent is. And I do think that Toronto, there's some decent options there, even against Dallas, a team that has the fifth lowest high danger percentage in terms of their chances against, but they're giving up some Corsi, and we know that Toronto is going to generate those high danger chances on the other side. Guys like our boy Austin Matthews, like we'll get there, but I do think that Toronto is in play, especially with that team total at home. I do have some interest there. Another spot that I haven't really touched on a ton lately that I think is interesting for tournaments, but I do think that it's an interesting one overall for stacking potential is Nashville. Like, my problem with Nashville is that I think that they're a little bit spread out in terms of their production, but the matchup is pretty solid. The Islanders are giving up the third most Corsi on the slate over the last 25 games, and it's kind of a neutral high danger spot. So I think that Nashville is an interesting, I guess, stacking opportunity at lower ownership, again, right past that top tier of implied totals. I do have a little bit of interest there in tournaments. You'll notice that a lot of these home teams definitely have higher totals. That's definitely not new, but Arizona, they're the kind of lone road team that looks up towards the top of the Vegas totals today, and it probably has a lot to do with this matchup against Ottawa. Neutral high danger situation, but second most Corsi against over the last 25 games. Arizona is a team that will throw pucks at the net. They're not generating a ton of chances overall, but I do think a guy like Taylor Hall would be really interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about him at some point today, but just a really nice volume spot when anytime you're playing Ottawa. I think that that's an interesting stacking opportunity. There's some really cheap weapons for Arizona as well. So let's go ahead and throw that as one of the stacking opportunities today for maybe a tournament situation. There's one more stack that I want to throw out there today, and I do think that the Florida Panthers are super interesting in just terms of the matchup. It's a little bit, I guess, makes me nervous overall because Philly just doesn't give up a lot of Corsi, but they've allowed the most high danger scoring chances on the season. So I think it's an interesting efficiency spot, I should say, for Florida. So definitely some volatility here, but some nice weapons that we could go to on the Florida side of things. And if things break just right, they could have a ton of upside on this slate where, again, the pieces don't come together seamlessly like they normally do in a couple spots. I know you guys want your picks, so let's talk a few specifics, starting with the center position per usual, as you'll see in the background. My boy Austin Matthews, this guy seems like he's just matchup independent at this point. 8,400 on DraftKings, certainly going to be in the conversation. 99th percentile shot prediction, 99th percentile shots plus blocks, and 98th percentile Corsi 4 over the last 15 days. 98th percentile blocks as well. So that's something we rarely see from a non-defensive player. So I do think that it's a really interesting spot. He's hit the block bonus in two of the last 3 games. So having that type of ceiling and floor is something that I'm willing to pay up for, no matter what the matchup is. He is 94th percentile in power play shots as well over the last 15 days. Going to be a guy that's going to continue to be heavily involved. Dallas has allowed the 5th lowest percentage of high danger chances. So that's the wrinkle in this, that it makes me a little bit nervous. But again, I do think that he's matchup proof, and I'll be going there, especially if I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned in tournaments because of that matchup. I'm not scared of Austin Matthews today. The next center I want to talk about, Tyler Seguin. This is a guy that maybe we should be a little bit scared of, but on the other side of this game, he's 6,500, and I will say that it's a little bit weird that he's still a winger on FanDuel, but take that for what it's worth. His price hasn't moved much over there either. 99th percentile shots plus blocks over the last 15 days, 98th percentile shot prediction, 97th percentile power play shots. So to me, if I hadn't told you what I'm about to say, you would say this is like pretty elite peripherals for a guy at 6,500. If we just take the name out of it, the team out of it. The concern is that he's playing with Corey Perry, and he's certainly lacking some confidence right now. You can see that in his game. 17 games without a goal for Tyler Seguin. Is this the night that he gets on the score sheet? I could see it happening, honestly. And I think that price has hit the point where I don't think it can go much lower, and the peripherals are still strong. So there's always going to be a situation where we have to kind of look past to the box scores a little bit and regression to the mean. I mean, he hasn't forgotten how to play. He hasn't forgotten how to score goals. So I think that at this point, it could be a really decent opportunity for him to kind of get off the schneid a little bit. Dallas does have the 3rd best Corsi 4 improvement from the last 25 games to the last 10 games. So I have some interest in Tyler Seguin today, especially at that price point. A 2K discount off of Austin Matthews. Certainly don't think he is anywhere near the floor and ceiling, but there's a lot of data points that would tell you that the goal is coming from Seguin. At the winger position, Fiala, he's an interesting looking character, but he's really been getting there for us lately for the Minnesota Wild. 4,500 on DraftKings, 53 on FanDuel. He has the 98th percentile power play shots over the last 15 days. He does have a 96th percentile shot prediction today, 95th percentile shot attempts. Those are pretty elite numbers for a $4,500 player, guys. So 58.8% of the team's power play time over the last 3 games. The last game, it was actually over 75%. So he's a guy they're featuring on this team right now, a team that definitely could be a seller around the trade deadline time. We already saw that with Zucker. They are playing against the New York Rangers, who have allowed the 2nd highest percentage of high danger scoring chances against. So I think that it's a really nice spot for Minnesota guys at their ceiling, like we mentioned in the stack section. Fiala could be a part of that again. I don't expect him to slow down anytime soon. The next player, Blake Coleman for the New Jersey Devils. We talked about him earlier this week. His price is a little bit annoying on DraftKings. It's slightly above what I would like to see, but the reason he's on this today, he's still 4,600 on FanDuel, which is completely absurd. They just don't want to move his price for some reason. Someone mentioned that today in the Discord as well. So I'm not scared to go to Blake Coleman specifically on FanDuel, but DraftKings, I think in tournaments, he's still okay. 97th percentile shot prediction, 97th percentile shot attempts, 93rd time on ice. So anytime we have a team like New Jersey, when they just don't have a ton of talent, some of these guys at the higher end can end up just seeing a ton of minutes. So I really like the idea of going to Coleman. 82nd percentile Corsi 4 over the last 15 days as well. And it is a great matchup against Detroit, like we talked about. Second highest percentage of high danger chances again. So it's a really nice spot. It is probably the highest paced game on the slate objectively. So I definitely think that he's someone that I'll be prioritizing as a one-off situation. But I think that there's a chance that we could end up on some lower owned New Jersey stack. He feels like the poster boy every time we walk through defense, but Roman Josi, 8K on DraftKings. He's expensive, but let's take a peek here. 99th percentile shot prediction, 99th percentile shots plus blocks, 99th percentile time on ice over the last 15 days. Guys, that's just an elite floor that you really can't get from a lot of other assets in DFS hockey. 99th percentile shot attempts over the last 15 days. And on the power play, 94th percentile as well. So there's upside here in addition to these elite peripheral numbers that you're seeing. So that's just like one of these things. If we just took the name out and you told me this guy was even like 9K, he probably would be in the conversation. So they will play against the New York Islanders, the third highest Corsi against team on the slate over the last 25 days. Should be volume there for Josi. Definitely think he's a fantastic option today. Ivan Provorov for the Philadelphia Flyers, 4,700 on DraftKings, 45 on FanDuel. This is a guy that I historically have played a lot of just because of, again, these elite peripheral stats and his floor, 96th percentile time on ice, 94th percentile shots plus blocks, and 93rd percentile shot prediction. This is over the last 15 days, and 80th percentile power play shot. So not quite the upside of Roman Josi, but an 80th percentile power play shot number is significant for a defenseman. So that's something that, again, they're trying to feature him most recently on the man advantage. So I love to see that, especially at that price point. They will be playing the Florida Panthers, the third most low danger Corsi 4. So what that tells me is it could lead to a few more blocking opportunities for Provorov if they're more on the perimeter, shooting from the outside. A lot of times that a chance falls down to that low danger kind of threshold means that they're getting a lot of shots blocked as well. So that's a situation where I think Provorov is a really solid bet to hit the block bonus today. Let's talk through goaltender. We've done a lot better job on this week, and I do think that a lot of it has to do with just targeting some of these players on teams that are playing really well. So Vasilevsky, 8,500, you certainly have to pay a premium for a guy that's playing on a team in the 99th percentile in team wins over the last month, 9-0-1 in their last 10 games. 95th percentile Vegas moneyline rating. They are against the Edmonton Oilers today without Connor McDavid. And they've got a team implied total of greater than 3.5 goals. Sometimes it's as simple as that, guys, really trying to capture the upside of this team, but also just really trying to grab the floor of a team that has just been playing extremely well. One of the better teams in the league, obviously. Top 5 save prediction for Vasilevsky as well. So what I like is Edmonton's not scared to throw pucks at the net. So hopefully he can rack up a decent amount of saves in this spot as well to really hit that ceiling. The next guy, our boy Elvis. I feel like this is a guy we've talked about a ton. His price confuses me, honestly. DraftKings 7,300. I don't understand it. 90th percentile team wins over the past month, 7-1 and 2 of their last 10 games. Columbus is playing extremely well. One of those losses was against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So it's interesting here that they're at Buffalo. They do have the highest percentage of low danger chances on the slate. So again, just trying to stack up these saves from the outside is something that can really help for these teams that like to throw pucks on net, but just don't score a ton of goals. So at 7,300, I get that he's on the road, all of that. Columbus also allows the second fewest percentage of high danger chances on the slate as well. So we talk about, again, a lot of times just like when things fit, sometimes you just don't fight it. He's cheap. It's a great team, or at least a team that's playing well lately against a really, really bad Buffalo team. And just a lot of things line up for upside and for floor here. If you want to learn even more about DraftKings NHL, make sure you hit the subscribe icon in the bottom right-hand corner so you don't miss anything along the way. And if you want to continue this conversation, come hang out with us in the Discord. We'll keep talking about the slate as we go right up until lock. Some late news. I'll see you then.